Welcome back to the lab. So with all the drop grids done for the month of February, let's take a look at all the announcements that we had and put them into our tier list. We began the month on February 4th with Kamen Rider Amazon. So Hot Toys has already explored this niche a few times now with Kamen Rider V3, Kamen Rider Black, and Shadow Moon. This one leans, however, much more into the raw organic design from the 1974 series. Accessories here look absolutely fantastic, and I absolutely love that attack effect. Definitely adds a lot of presence when posing the figure. I do see the appeal for fans of the classic show. However, for me, it didn't even come close to swaying me from my holy trio. So for lab results, this one definitely lands comfortably in the stable compound tier. Next up, on February 9th, we had Space Walker Baby, a collaboration between Hot Toys and Brothersfree. So I actually covered the history behind this figure in a previous drop grid, but long story short, both of the companies started out in the early 2000s, and they've actually collaborated a few times over the years now. So this piece is basically a celebration of that 25 years of occasional partnership. So I don't think it's a terrible looking figure, and I can definitely appreciate the history and the sentiment behind it. For some collectors, especially fans of Brothersfree, I imagine this could be a pretty meaningful piece. And like YouTube's algorithm, it's clearly finding its audience, because despite being limited at 600, it's still not waitlisted yet. And for me, I almost feel guilty saying this, but if someone gifted this to me, I would absolutely regift this. And if I couldn't, I don't think I would even bring it out to show the people that bought me initially that I still had it. For the lab results, this one is 100% replaced lab goggles. February 19th, we got a few announcements. So starting with Iron Man Mark 43, this is version 2.0. So we got two versions, the regular and then the deluxe with the Ultron Sentry. Actually looks fantastic. I do love the display base on the deluxe edition, and the Tony Stark head sculpt looks absolutely fantastic, along with the USB-C port that activates all the armor lights. Chef's kiss. But despite all that, I really couldn't be less excited for this figure. At this point, I feel like we could probably fill a small landfill with a number of Iron Man and Spider-Man figures Hot Toys has released. I am excited for the superior Iron Man, but this current version, Mark 43 2.0, just doesn't do much for me personally. So out of respect for the die-cast armor and engineering though, this one will coast into the stable compound tier. Same day, same movie, we got Thor from Age of Ultron, and for the first time, we finally get Chris Hemsworth with glorious rooted hair. I blinked and the figure was already waitlisted, which tells you everything you need to know about the demand. Really, they did a fantastic job. The silicone arms, the armor detailing, and the lightning effects all look really quite outstanding. Generally, excellent work from Hot Toys. Not quite a combustion for me, but an easy chemical reaction. Ending our busy day of announcements, we got Pelegostos Chief Jack Sparrow from Dead Man's Chest. So I was actually pleasantly surprised by this one. It might not be quite as nostalgic as the classic Black Pearl Jack Sparrow, but the paint application here looks really fantastic. Accessories, display base look great too. Figure clearly doesn't take itself too seriously, which honestly, not always a terrible thing. I really do think it's got some crazy shelf presence, and it just feels like one of those figures that might put a smile on your face when you're admiring your collection. For the lab results, this one is an easy chemical reaction. On February 24th, we got Batman from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. This was actually my first pre-order in a while. Figure looks perfect. I mean, they really nailed the Frank Miller comic book vibe, especially with that massive build and the overall presence of the suit. So I usually take a bit of time before pulling the trigger on Batman releases. I mainly collect Joker figures on the DC side, but this one immediately stood out. It's the kind of figure that demands its own space on the shelf. It's definitely not going to be sharing a spot with anybody else. Just not sure if I'm going to be going masked or unmasked. But for the lab results, this one is an easy combustion. We end the month with Angry Elvis. February 26, Hot Toys revealed also Superman from the Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. As I mentioned earlier, so I only collect Hot Toys, Jokers, and the occasional Batman. So my DC rule has stayed pretty solid over the years. Now, Hot Toys has definitely tempted me outside my usual collecting lane before. Those Alien and Predator figures are absolutely beautiful. But this Superman might finally break that rule. I think it's the blood in the teeth that really sold it for me. The expression, the sculpt, they've absolutely nailed it. Nothing too crazy accessory-wise, but with a figure like this, almost any pose is going to dominate your shelf space. So, still undecided about pre-ordering, but one thing is clear, this is a very obvious combustion too. And that is it for the tier list for the month of February. Pretty good month. What did you guys think? Thank you for watching, and while you wait for the March drop grid to start, how about you take a look at some of the videos that I got on the channel. Take care.